attributable for a state to accuse another state.
That's the fact that the court in Nicaragua based its judgment on customary international law. Frustrate your argument?
Well, Your Excellency, counsel does recognize the time difference between the Nicaragua case and now, but recently the Uganda case also reaffirmed the argument, which originates from the Caroline Doctrine, that a state has to be attributed to a non-state actor for the other state to claim a use of force.
So I believe the time is up. Thank you.
So if I may invite you for the second counsel of the applicant.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. My name is Arisa Rakunpung, and I appear on behalf of the Kingdom of Amaran, speaking on Claim 2 with 3 main submissions. First, the Lebu people are considered indigenous people and have the right to self-determination. Second, Amaran's proclamation of recognizing rights to the Lebu people of self-determination does not condone nor endorse violence against Rosha. And third, the support provided to the Lebu people by Amaran does not violate the principle of non-intervention. May you please support? Your Excellency, the Council will now proceed with the first submission, claiming that, respectfully submitting that the Lebu people are indigenous people and should have the right to self-determination. International law does not have a set definition of indigenous peoples, but the United Nations, specifically the International Labour Organization on the Covenant of Indigenous and Tribe People and Independent. In the ILO Convention number 169 says that it has consistently identified indigenous people through indicators such as a strong historical connection to the land, a distinct cultural identity, and their status as a non-dominant group within the state.
Are you party to that ILO convention?
Yes, under Article 38, 1A of the ICJ statute, the ILO is a binding treaty.
But the parties to the case are not party to that ILO convention.
The idea of self-determination and its promotion is still
So
customary.
the definition of indigenous people. So I think the definition, as per international law, of indigenous people has been, and perhaps still is, quite controversial. You refer to the ILO convention, but the problem is that neither party to this case is party to that ILO convention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The Council recognizes the mistake, but would like to establish that the Lebu people are indigenous people in order to analyze the proclamation itself. The Council will proceed. Not only do Lebu people have a strong historical connection to the land, a distinct cultural identity, they have unique historical.
So if the point of your argument is you want to say that these people have the right to self-determination, isn't it enough to establish that there are people for the purposes of right to self-determination? Why do you need to establish that there are indigenous people, which is perhaps more controversial?
The Council would like to establish that the people are indigenous people due to their historical connection and their unique distinct identity, which also links to the fact that indigenous people are often a minority and could be subjected to.
So is right to self-determination limited to indigenous people?
No, according to the ICCPR, it is a right to all people to have self-determination.
And is the right to determination of indigenous people different from those of peoples?
The right of the self-determination of indigenous people refers specifically to the ability for them to maintain and preserve their culture and political autonomy within their groups.
But then you have Article 27 in CPR. Anyway, so is there any difference between right Article 27 as CPR?
Could Your Excellency repeat the question, please?
So if you want to say that indigenous people have the right to preserve their culture, right? We can, I think, apply Article 27 of the ICCPR. apply to, let's say, minority rights, so you alluded to minority as well. So I think the point of our question is that why do we need to get into this difficult water of indigenous people while it seems enough to establish that there are people for the purposes of right to self-determination?
The council would like to establish that the people are indigenous people in order to refer to the proclamation itself of recognizing the Labu's rights to exercise internal self-determination within Roche's institutional framework. On this basis, the Labu people are qualified under international law as indigenous peoples, and they are also entitled to the rights of self-determination, as it is the rights of people with distinct identity to preserve culture and political autonomy. And the establishment of the Labu status as indigenous and their rights to self-determination provides the legal foundation for the Council to analyze the lawfulness of Amaranth's proclamation. Your Excellency, proceeding with the second claim, Amaranth's proclamation did not undermine the territorial integrity and political independence against Roche, nor did it endorse or condone violence against Roche. Article 1, Paragraph 3 of the International Covenant on the Civil and Political Rights, or ICCPR, emphasizes that states should promote the realization of rights to self-determination, which was what Amaranth did in the proclamation. This approach follows with the Western Sahara Advisory Opinion, and it affirmed that the acknowledgement of such right in itself does not constitute intervention and a violation of the state sovereignty. International law also allows for the political recognition of rights.
I think it would be a stretch to say that Article 1 ICCPR requires state parties to ICCPR to politically and publicly recognize, for example, diplomatic recognition of other states, promote recognition and enforcement of referendum in other states. In other words, we can, I think, interpret Article 1 more limitatively. For example, we can say that all Article 1 requires is states to promote internal self-defense, self-determination.
And if you may add to that, if you look at Article 2 of the ICPR, the duty of the state is to the people in their jurisdiction. These people in your jurisdiction, in Amora jurisdiction, the people that you claim to have the right to self-determination, are they in Amora jurisdiction?
They are not within Amaranth's jurisdiction, but Roche's. However, the Council would like to establish the right to self-determination in regards to Roche's claim that Amaranth's proclamation did violate and condone violence against Roche and its sovereignty as a state. Proceeding with the submission, international law in the Kosovo Advisory Opinion allows for the political recognition of rights. Additionally, it may not interfere with the sovereignty of another state by using means of coercion to interfere with another state's domestic and internal affairs. Amaranth's proclamation was simply a declaration of rights that did not come with coercion and force.
What fall into the means of coercion?
Coercion is when a state influences the choice and the action of other states by using means of force to achieve a desired outcome.
Do you have any example, a concrete example that would help us understand this more?
An example of coercion could be seen in the Nicaragua case, where the court ruled that the USA had funded and had control and had coerced the contrast into trying to violate or trying to have effect on the Nicaraguan government.
So there must be some control over the non-state, like the rebellion group in other states. So you require that there must be some control.
Yes.
Okay. So supporting alone doesn't count.
Yes. And Amaranth's proclamation was a declaration of rights, and it should also be noted that it happened following the initial Free Boki movement or the FBM attacks, which means that it did not allow, support, or authorize the Lamu people to create resistance against Russia. Article 5 of the UN.
So, I think we can agree that Amaran did not control or sort of physically control state authorities with Rotia, but hasn't international law sort of evolved from 1986 judgment in Nicaragua on this specific point? So for example, if you follow the national positions of states regarding international law as applicable in cyber activities, you will see that the majority, I think, of the states have expressed their national positions, say that principle of non-intervention goes a bit further than that.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The Council would like to establish that the principle of non-intervention, although within the Nicaragua and the U.S. case, is a bit far behind in terms of date, is still a customary law, or is still a custom that states practice, as there is two fulfillments of state practice and opinion juris. Article 5 of the UNDIRP affirms the rights of indigenous people to maintain and strengthen all aspects of their political, legal, social, and economic institutions while participating as a citizen of that state. As reflected in paragraph 8 of the Pact, the Lamu people and their referendum follow within Roche's constitutional framework, and it is